Hi, it's Ashley from Sweet Dreams Bake Shop, and welcome back to my channel where I make a lot of cake and cookie decorating tutorials as well as give a lot of baking business tips. And as per usual, please stay till the end of the video if you're interested in knowing my pricing for these cakes. Now, you might have seen my Instagram reel or my YouTube community post where I told you guys all about my caking fail. Yeah, I was trying to decorate with whipped cream and it just did not go well. I'm going to redo that video. I'm also going to share my fail in that video, but for now, what I'm doing is I'm taking those cakes that were a fail, I scraped them off, and I'm using Italian meringue buttercream for this tutorial. Today I am working on a 4-inch and a 3-inch cake. These are very, very small. I did stack them in the center and put in a little center dowel, but I really didn't need any support in the middle here. Nothing is going to cave in because it's so light. Whenever I'm melding colors together like this, I do tend to use a piping bag because I want to make sure that I've evenly coated the cake. That way I can give this a lot of swipes without having to worry about any bald spots of any sort. Do whatever you would like with the texturization of this. I decided to run a comb through it, but you could leave it smooth if you'd like as well. While that's setting in the fridge, I'm going to start working on all of my buttercream flowers. So I do recommend that you use either Italian meringue or Swiss meringue buttercream for this. You can use American buttercream for this as well, but I just find if you don't have a specific recipe for American buttercream for flowers, it can be a little bit tricky because sometimes it becomes a little bit too dry. It's totally doable. I just find it easier with Italian meringue buttercream or Swiss meringue when you're starting out. If you find that your buttercream is flopping around a little bit too much and it doesn't have that stiffness that you're looking for, I recommend adding in more butter. I used to add in more icing sugar or things like that, and I just found that, again, it got that texture too dry. So adding in the butter keeps it nice and smooth, but also has a firmness to it as well. Now, to create all of these flowers, I'm actually using relatively the same tip. So I'm using this straight edge petal tip here, and I'm just kind of creating all of these little loops. I want to have some variety in this bouquet, so I'm really just going to do maybe 1 or 2 different types of flowers and then fill in the rest with leaves and little roses. I believe this is called an English rose here, but please don't quote me on that. I'm really not good with my flower names. I just see different types of buttercream flowers that I like, and I try to emulate them. So what I'm doing here is I'm creating little arcs, and notice how tight I'm keeping this. It's not quite like a rose where you bring it all the way around. I'm really overlapping this quite a bit, and then I'll bring the petals out more and more as I get to the outer edge. Now again, if you notice that things are flopping over or melding together, often I see this is a problem where it kind of looks like things are melting into one another. It's all about that butter content, so up that butter content to make it nice and stiff. You'll also notice that I'm not using scissors or anything to lift off my flowers once they're finished. I'm actually putting them on a tray with their piece of parchment paper attached to it, and I'm going to tell you what we're going to do with those in a few minutes. Now you'll notice that some of the flowers that I'm making right now aren't all for this cake. Some of them are for the Lunchbox cake, which I'm going to show you later on in the video. They're very similar, but they both have a little bit of something different to them. Now let's go ahead and make a simple rose. We're going to start with that bud in the middle, twist things around, keep even pressure, and make little rainbow arcs. I'm making this a little bit more of an open rose. If you want it to be a little bit more closed, you just have to tilt your petal tip inward a little bit so that it's more closed petals instead of open like this. And obviously the general rule of thumb is the bigger flower that you want, the bigger petal tip that you're going to have to use. And there's several different sizes of petal tips out there that are available. It's really up to you how big you actually want them. And if you're struggling with making super big flowers, it could be because things are melding together too much because the weight of the frosting is too much. Have no fear. What you should be doing is placing all of these florals into the freezer. And if you want to build upon them, take them out once they've frozen up a little bit. That way you can build upon them and make even bigger flowers. But see how I'm handling these completely with my hands? It's because they've been frozen in the fridge for about 10 minutes. They really don't need too much time. And then I can place them on wherever I want. This is great because if you place your flower somewhere where you don't really like it, you have time to lift it back off. That being said, there is a finite amount of time before it will start to melt in your hand. So make sure that you work quickly, but know that you can go back. Now what I'm doing is I'm taking a leaf tip and I'm creating all of these leaves. When I create my leaf, I always kind of squeeze it a little bit to get that curly effect, and then I pull straight off and stop squeezing. To get that green color, I just added a little bit of leaf green to the pink. Now we're working on the center section where I placed a bunch of leaves, and now I'm placing on some of these little roses. And again, I made a really small rose by using a small petal tip, and then I placed them in the freezer. You can, in theory, freeze any buttercream flowers that you have that you don't really have a use for at the moment, but you might want to use them later down the road. But the only thing is, you might not have enough room in your freezer to actually store all of them because they need to be stored nice and flat. I found these amazing edible images all printed for me and pre-cut, and I placed them on there. You don't need anything really, just push them into the buttercream and you are good to go. I absolutely love the way this little 2-tiered turned out, and I think it would also translate really well to a 6 and an 8-inch cake. And now moving along to our lunchbox cake, and I know that in general lunchbox cakes are supposed to be a little bit more simplistic because that parchment paper is going to cover up most of the detailing on the side, and if there's anything, any decor of any sort, it's usually on the top. However, I decided that I just could not resist putting blooms all over this, so that is what I'm doing. And I'm making a really easy 5-star petal tipped flower, and I'm taking that really small tip that I used for those small roses on the other cake, and I'm allowing some of them to sit a little bit more flat against the cake and some of the petals to pop up just a little bit more. I find when you do this, it adds a nice little definition. And yes, this cake is being tilted on its side, almost upside down practically at some points. It's really stuck on there. Highly recommend that after you crumb coat your cake or you coat your cake completely, that you leave it in the fridge for about an hour before you attempt to do this. The reason is because it might slide off. They're generally okay if they're this size, but you never know. So to be on the safe side, make sure that you do chill this for a significant amount of time. Now I'm going in with another color. I wanted to add in some white and some pink flowers as well. Now on that first cake, I did all of the roses on the flower nail to make it easier for myself, but in this instance, I can just do it flat on the cake. It does look a little bit more confusing this way, but it's actually probably a lot easier. And if you don't own a flower nail, obviously this is the way to go, rather than transferring it over. Again, I'm doing everything the exact same way, creating those little rainbow arcs, and then moving on to the next. Now the only downside of this is that you can't have a bunch of cluster of roses if you wanted to, so if you did want that, you would have to go and get your flower nail and then put them in the freezer again and then place them on. You can also lift with your scissors to put them onto the cake. I just find it's riskier and it's a lot more difficult to do it that way for myself. Once you're satisfied with all of your placement of your flowers, go ahead and fill in all of those gaps with your leaf tip. You can use the single V leaf tip and that looks pretty, but I really love the double V. I just find it adds that little something special to your cakes, makes it look a little bit fancier. I actually really like it as a ring of flowers here, and you could add in a nice little message on top if you would like to, but I decided to go ahead and add in the rest of those frozen flowers that I had left over from the other cake. And then I went ahead and added in all of those little butterflies, just like the other cake as well. Now, both of these cakes are going to spend the majority of their life in the fridge because they have whipped cream in the center and they're decorated with this buttercream on the outside, so they must go in the fridge, but they can stay out for up to 2 hours. Place them in the little lunch container and you've got yourself the cutest little lunchbox cake. Now let's get into the pricing of this cake. And this cake pricing is based upon a 6 and an 8-inch cake. Realistically, this cake size just doesn't work for custom cake orders because it would never reach that dollar minimum amount. I would still make it at the size if someone requested, but it would still be $225 no matter what. And for this little lunchbox cake, I would pair it with a cute fork, make sure that it's all nicely packaged and ready to go, and it might be done as a pre-order or it would just be on hand at all times. Now let's get into the subscriber submission of the video. This person recreated my dog cake. I absolutely love it. Go ahead and check them out. And if you want to see my tutorial on how to make this cake, go ahead and check that out in the right-hand corner. And if you want to be the next subscriber submission of the video, then please follow me at SD Bake Shop on Instagram, where you can either tag me in a photo or send me a photo. Any and all dessert levels are welcome. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you can be part of the Sweetie fam. Right now, I'm uploading weekly, so make sure you hit that notification bell so you know when I upload. Also, be sure to comment, request, or ask a question. I love hearing from you guys. Bye!